Okay, for you, specifically for you, I'm going to try and envision an ACOTAR 6 not surrounding Elriel, but Gwynriel centric. Never let it be said I can't overcome my biases. So I think the joy of Asriel's character is that the themes that I feel like are surrounding him at the moment could work in a Gwynriel ACOTAR 6 almost as well as they work on it with an Elriel one. Like, I know I talked a lot of shit about Asriel, like deconstructionist Asriel. And while I think in an Elaine story it would be about personal choice and rising above what fate tells you that you need or that you deserve, I think a Gwynriel story, these two would be mates, and it would be a total surrender to fate and to a higher power. So it would be a deconstruction story that ends up you find your way back to God through your deconstructionist journey, which I hate it, could be really beautiful. So a Gwynriel ACOTAR 6 would begin with Nesta at the end of House of Flame and Shadow, where she just got the Star Sword back. Now Gwydion and Truth Teller are back together on the same plane, and Nesta now needs to find out what the hell all this Dust Court shit is about. So she gathers her besties, and the Valkyrie journey continues, and they immediately dive into the library with the other priestesses. They're trying to figure out like all the lore, all the stuff, and while this is going on, I want really, really badly for Nesta and Cassian to have a marriage counseling moment. But unfortunately, a Gwynriel story would be focused on fate and a higher power, and the surrendering of yourself to said higher power. So I don't think Nessian would get the marriage counseling that they need and definitely deserve at this juncture. It breaks my heart to eliminate this particular plotline, but in service of Gwynriel, I shall do it. So Asriel would be enlisted as the wielder of Truth Teller, who just got it back. He would be assisting the Valkyries, or at least like watching over them while they do all this research. And I think at some point they would have to go to the day court to handle all of that shit. And coincidentally, Elaine, after the Asriel bonus chapter, Elaine is feeling like, okay, Asriel doesn't want me, I'm gonna move on, and then she ends up in the arms of Lucian, or eventually the arms of Lucian. So I feel like Asriel and Elaine would be doing parallel romances in this. It breaks my heart to do this to them, but I think in a Gwynriel story, a Lucian is the natural conclusion, especially because Elaine would be, she still has all these themes surrounding personal choice, but in a Gwynriel story where Asriel is surrendering to a higher power and his deconstruction brings him back to God, Elaine would be surrendering her personal choices to said higher power, and thus would be able to embrace Lucian in a much more healthy way. So I think Nesta's journey into learning about the Dust Court would lead her to, and the Valkyries and Asriel and maybe Cassian to the Day Court libraries, where Hellion would be there, and I think Elaine and Lucian would somehow be along for the ride because Lucian has the whole curse with Vasa and Jurian to deal with, and Elaine is along for the ride there. And I think it's on that little Day Court expedition that Lucian finds out that Hellion is his father, and at that point, Elaine and Lucian would break off from the party because they are going to have to deal with a lot of Lucian stuff, and then they can have their own separate journey a la Empire of Storm's Tower of Dawn. So Elaine and Lucian would go on their Tower of Dawn journey, and then we stick with Asriel and Gwyneth and the Valkyries for the Empire of Storm's journey. So I think throughout the journey to the Day Court, and in the Day Court during the research, Gwyn and Asriel would be getting closer, and I think Asriel would have a lot of agita about this because, again, he's not a fuckboy. He's still hurting over Elaine, I think, and being around Gwyn would take a lot of the sting out of that, especially a lot of the sting out of watching Elaine with Lucian, knowing that he kind of fucked it up, calling her, saying that the kiss was a mistake and all that stuff. And I think at some point Eris would show up in this story because not only would he be important to like the Lucian Elaine side of things, being Lucian's brother, but I also think that there would need to be a reckoning about Eris and Asriel's role in leaving Morrigan in the woods. And I think in a Gwynriel story or an Elriel story, that all would have to come out before Asriel could have even a little bit of a shot at a happily ever after. And I think what Asriel and Gwyneth would both need is the Jaime Lannister in the bathtub moment with Brienne. I think Asriel is going to need to be in a place where he can be vulnerable with Gwyneth, or Gwyneth is kind of the one person among this group of adventurers that he can be vulnerable around, regarding like his feelings about Elaine, his feelings about Eris, his feelings about Morgan. I think he's going to need a sounding board for that. And at the same time, I think Gwyneth could also use a sounding board aside from the Valkyries. See, I'm already running into like cognitive dissonance with a Gwynriel centric ACOTAR 6, because I would never want to see Gwyneth like supersede the Valkyries and like her confidence in them with a boy, because this was such a girl power, girl friendship story that like giving Gwyneth a love interest where like Asriel would be taking, like he would be superseding a lot of the confidences that Nesta and Emery would have. It's weird to me, but I'm with it. I'm with the Gwynriel logic right now. I'm trying to not be biased. Anyway, I think in a Gwynriel story, especially because both of them have this religious iconography around them, I could see it being a coming back to God story, regaining faith in life story. It could be really, really beautiful. I just personally don't want it. Like we as long as it wasn't like a training arc, I think it could be really good. But considering that Gwyneth in canon she was having trouble leading the library for Nesta's wedding. Like, this would be a library story. I don't think Asriel is romancing Gwyn in the day court. Like, that's not happening. I think it would be a library story, which means it would be like a House of Wind training arc story, and it would be Akamak for the 4th time, and I would my 13th reason. Don't give me my 13th reason. That being said, though, it was very fun to speculate, and I think upon like rumination and thinking about it, and a Gwynriel story could be really beautiful, and I think it would be marked by friendship and the friends to lovers of it all. It could be very cute. I want more, man. We now return to your scheduled Elriel programming.